Alrighty then. I just thought that I would take a chance or take a second to tell a little bit about myself because I don't think I've ever really done that in any of my videos, and people are just like probably like, who's this random guy talking? And you know, you build familiarity with people over time. Though I don't really post that much, and I'm not really a public figure of any sorts, so why would anybody, you know, invest any kind of time getting to know me or know who I am if they don't even know any of the experiences or trials that I've faced in my life that even have brought me to the point of who I am or why I function the way I do. First off, I would like to say my name is Eric Lyles. I am 35 years old, getting ready to turn 36 this month, actually. And I work part time at a full time job because, my time um, is largely my time, and I don't like to, give it up now that it's been, taken. Like, it's very hard to explain. I was kicked out of so many different things and removed from, society a number of times to the point where I would say I really just don't want to participate anymore. Um, and this is before 2020. Like, I'd say the first time it happened, I was probably around, well, the first time special exceptions were made for me for behavior and the way I was, because I was just always too much for people to deal with, and all that extra. I think was in like first or second grade. They gave me like these little coupons, and I got like extra privileges in class. And if I was good, I got these coupons, and no other kid in the class was getting them. Um, so I think that was the first time I noticed that I was getting some kind of special treatment based off of my behavior. And I don't think that ever should have happened. I'm not really big on treating kids better because they behave worse. And I think that by treating me um, with special exceptions or trying to bribe me to behave better, you're already fighting a losing battle. Um, as I grew up, I realized that most people are very easily controlled or influenced, told what to do, whereas I have a very defiant streak in me to where I would say I don't listen to people unless I want to listen, and that's become a very big problem in my life because um, no matter what, you know, who or, the governing body over me that there is, unless you're a police officer, I don't acquiesce to your authority over me. Like a police officer can tell me something and I'll do it. Or even if there's like an emergency situation, there's like a firefighter or somebody there and they were asking me like to do something, I would probably comply with that without giving my own, I mean, I wouldn't put my own, you know, ideas or anything in front of the fact that there's an authority there. So, like teachers, I always had problems with teachers when I was a kid. Um, Not so much principals because, again, I think I respected the authority of a principal more so than I respected the authority of a teacher. Um, so I had less issues with principals, security guards. Really didn't give them too much problems growing up. But as I was growing up, I realized that I just wasn't. One, I grew up in an environment where they didn't really um, accelerate the kids who were more intelligent, or they didn't separate the kids and uh, what's that word? Reinforce. They didn't reinforce um, talents that some children might have possessed. They didn't identify the talents and potential in some kids. Uh, I feel like I grew up in a town that really didn't care about the development of the youth because there was casinos and legal gambling and prostitution in the town that I grew up. And I don't think the prostitution was the big problem because honestly, now that I do adult entertainment part time, some of the most genuine and nice interactions I've had were with people who are in that industry. So I think gambling and alcohol addiction is a very big problem in Nevada, where I grew up, and that probably led to a lot of the neglect in raising the kids out there. Like me, for an example, when I was 14 years old, I got arrested for bomb threat and fourth degree arson. Now, I got arrested based off of statements that were written by other kids in the same grade as me. So I was a ninth grade student, and four kids went and wrote statements that I said kaboom when I went outside the front door of the school, which was, I think, 2 days after the bomb threat initially was or allegedly was made, even though I don't think there ever was a technical bomb threat. And it's funny is you can't really research this that well because it's all like right before the internet and none of it got uploaded to the internet, even though they had all the case files and they had all the stuff to upload. They never really put a lot of it up there because I think it would incriminate them in the long run to prove that they wrongfully accused a child of bomb threat. Like, because if we really got into the details of it, there was no evidence ever against me. They searched my house and my property and never found any components to make any bombs and never found any details or plans on my part. All that they said they had was a backpack from a kid who I, to this day, still think was mentally handicapped, and he did not possess the faculties to carry out or to do what they said he was going to do. Um, Now, based off me saying that he wasn't intelligent enough to carry out the plan to blow up a high school, they said I was a co-conspirator, and eventually they changed that and said I was the mastermind behind the entire thing. Um, I got a public defender, and my public defender ended up scaring my parents into having me plead guilty for bomb threat. And then they got their scapegoat, so it didn't make them look bad. To this day, I wish I would have never pled guilty. I wish I would have um, went against the wishes of my parents and not played ball like everybody always says, and maybe my life would have had a slightly different trajectory. But through admitting that I did something that I had no intentions or desire or motive to do, it really made a lot of other kids fearful of me. It created a very hostile environment when I returned to school a year later because they suspended me for 2 semesters. It it created the environment for me not to succeed in that school. So had I not pled guilty to something that I didn't do, maybe I would have gone further in school. Although let's go back to me being in fifth grade, fourth grade. Um, I was I would say I was accelerated beyond most of the average kids in my grade, and so much so that we'd go around the classroom and we would read from the textbooks. I was excluded from participating in reading exercises, and I really enjoyed reading as a kid. I think a lot of the things that I was good at, um, I was criticized for, so I don't. I think if I reflect upon it, I would say I didn't want to participate anymore. Like, if you want to read, because you read good, and then the teacher tells you you can't read because it discourages the other kids that can't read good from participating, even though I don't think that's how it works. Because I know other kids in class, they wanted me to read because they didn't want to read at all. So if I read, then it got read faster. We got through it, like, but the teacher, like, I remember one time in particular, like, she was like, anybody wants to read? And I would raise my hand, and she would pick somebody, and then she's like, anybody else want to read? And I think I was like the only one who raised my hand, like, every time. I always wanted to read. And I remember one time I was probably the only person that raised my hand or something, and she called me out by name, and she's like, no, Eric, you don't get to read. And I think that made me emotional. And I got up and I just like walked out of the classroom, which in fifth grade, like, I don't even know how old I was, like 9, 10, 10 years old. I just got up and walked out of the classroom. Now, I probably wouldn't have done that if my mom wasn't the lunch lady. So I went down to the lunchroom and I probably cried to my mom about it because, I was pretty big whiner as a kid. Let's see. So I went to middle school. Middle school wasn't that bad, except, I had a bunch of kids that I thought were my friends in elementary school, but then when we went to middle school, they all pretended like they didn't know me because, like, the middle school was 3 elementary schools combined. So, like, there was kids that were friends with other kids outside of school that lived in their neighborhoods, but they didn't go to the same elementary school. So when we went all to the same middle school, like, there was kids who were friends with other kids that didn't want me to know that they were friends with me or something because I was very unpopular. I was very unpopular as a kid. Um, so I had a lot of people, just give me the cold shoulder and pretty much just, act like we didn't have, you know, any kind of history of friendship or whatever, which that kind of sucked. That was something I learned about people very pretty young, the two-faced nature of them, that whole thing. Um, so back to sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, that wasn't that bad. I got in some fights, got suspended here and there. Um, nothing to write home about. You know what I mean? Like, that was pretty. I didn't go to school a lot in seventh grade. I remember that, but they had to pass me to eighth grade, or maybe I didn't go to school in eighth grade. All I remember is I didn't get along with the teachers, I didn't get along with the students, so I just stopped really going to school. I'd probably go to school 1 or 2 days a week, but there was such a overcapacity of the schools in the town I grew up in, Prump, that they couldn't hold anybody back. And I think I heard a conversation between some teachers and a principal one day about it. And after I heard that conversation, I was just like, well, if you can't hold me back, I ain't coming to school. And my mom didn't enforce that I came to school. My dad would leave before uh, we would get up in the morning. So, like, my dad had to go to work at 4 o'clock in the morning, and my mom, she didn't, like, make me go to school. She was a very bad role model. She all she did was smoke pot and watch old movies. And then if me and my brother started fighting, she would get in the car and go to a casino and gamble. And she'd probably stay there almost all day or whatever. And my older sister, she was 7 years older than me. My half sister, she had 2 kids. Then after she had 2 kids, when I was probably about 14 at the time, so probably around the time I started getting in trouble at school, and get in trouble with the cops, my sister had 2 kids that she pretty much abandoned with my parents and me and my brother, and she went to California where she continued to do methamphetamines, and she was like living in Hesperia, Apple Valley, Victorville, that whole area, and just, you know, partying it up and doing drugs or whatever, while me and my brother had to watch her 2 kids every day. So, when I started going to juvie, it was almost better in juvie because then I didn't have to babysit all freaking afternoon and deal with, these kids. That wasn't fun. I didn't want to do that. As much as it was like my mom's responsibility, she would just take off and leave them with me and my brother. When I got a question for bomb threat and fourth degree arson, they couldn't get a hold of my mom, so they arrested me at school. And my mom was at one of the casinos, and back then you didn't have cell phones, so, like, I was having my mom paged at the casino, and she didn't answer the pages because, I would always page her, I guess. Like, it wasn't the first time I did that. So, like, when she was getting paged to casino, she probably thought that I just wanted to come home early from school or whatever. So she was ignoring the page. And it was actually the cops calling that time. Um, and they couldn't get a hold of my mom. So they questioned me without a parent and guardian present when I was 14 years old. And then they used that statement against me to incriminate me in the fourth degree arson and bomb threat thing. And it's funny because they used leading questions and stuff. Like, they asked me a bunch of obscure stuff, and I don't remember really what the questions were, but I remember they asked me if I knew how to make a bomb, and what I explained how to make was not a bomb. Like, and as an adult, if a kid told me to put a ping pong ball in a can of gas and that's a bomb, I would say no. That's how you create an explosion if that even does work. Um, but that's definitely not a bomb. And the fact that they said that that was me admitting I had knowledge of how to make explosives and all this different stuff, it just, they really were out for blood. And it was like a 14-year-old kid, man, just with a big mouth. That's all I was. I was a 14-year-old kid with a big mouth. And then I started to go to jail after that, failing piss tests because I did smoke pot because my mom smoked pot. So I got pot from my mom and I would smoke weed. Um, Unfortunately, my mom was very bad with finances and had a really bad gambling addiction. So at a young age, she was having me go through people's garages and sheds and steal power tools so she could pawn them. And that didn't catch up on to her until one time when I was in jail already. She didn't have me to go steal for her, so she ended up stealing from like my brother had a girlfriend or something there. Like some girl was like living with my brother. I don't even know if she was his girlfriend or if she was just staying there. Um, But there was a girl who was staying there. My mom stole her guitar and her amp and went and pawned it, and the girl reported it stolen. So my mom actually went to jail for theft at like 50 something years old. It was the first time she had gotten in trouble, and it was the first time she didn't have someone else to do it for her. So like all the stealing she had me do, I could have gotten in trouble. I never got caught for any of the stealing. Thankfully, what I mean, well, not thankfully. I wish I wouldn't have done any of it. Um, but the first time she stole something, she got caught for it. And I was just going to school for truancies at that point, failing piss tests. I robbed a corner store, which was really dumb. I was out of money, 17 years old. Um, I spent my 16th birthday in jail. I spent my 18th birthday in jail, and then I stopped going to jail at 18 years old, or 17. You know, what I mean, like 17 years old was the last time I was arrested, and then I got released the day after I turned 18. The probation officers and the cop that was in the police station when I got back to Pahrump, they said that it would be in my best interest just to leave town and not come back. But I was still on like some kind of probation or something because when I moved to Vegas, I got a job as a warehouse worker at a white cap construction supply company, and I had to go to 3 NA or AA meetings a week, and I had to have like someone sign this sheet of paper, and I had to fax it over to them every 2 weeks, or I had to take it out to them. I either had to hand deliver it to them or fax it to them. I don't remember how I gave it to them. It's a long time ago, but I had to do, I had to go to 12-step meetings for a period of time after I got released. And then I got off probation and I got off of, and I was actually clean for a really long time. I was doing really good. Like I didn't smoke pot for like, I don't know, almost 2 years. I think I was doing really good because I got a job at the White Cap Construction Supply Company, and then I had my first kid because I was with this girl Ashley at the time, the mother of my children, and we were together for almost 5 years in total. But I had a daughter with her and a son, and I was taking night classes to get an adjusted diploma because I got my GED while I was in jail. So I took my GED test while I was in jail, got my GED, and then in order to become a union electrician's apprentice in Las Vegas, you had to have a high school diploma. You couldn't have a GED. So I had to go back to school, get an adjusted diploma, um, which required me to get a year of science and a year of math that I was missing. So I took those, and after that, I got my adjusted diploma, and I went down and applied to be in the electrical union and started working in the electrical union as a pre-apprentice at Mandalay Bay. That was fun. I enjoyed being an electrician at that time when I was young, and I was still, like I was learning stuff. I felt like the industry was, I felt like there was this brotherhood in the union. Um, I had been going to picnics for, a decade with my dad. Like my dad was an electrical union brother, and it sucks because I didn't get a really good experience in the union, and I ended up getting kicked out of the union in my third year for some really trumped up stuff. And I'll get into that further in probably another video. I'll stop it. I'll stop it right around here. So as of this video, I think I've gotten to the point where I said, I introduced my name, Merrick Lyles. My dad's name's Larry Lyles. My mother's name's Kim Lyles. My brother is Adam Lyles, and then my sister is Ann Margaret Haynes. Yeah. Um, I was born in Arizona. I lived in Florida for the first 4 or 5 years of my life. Then I moved to Nevada. My dad, he went to Nevada first because there was no work in Florida, so he moved to Nevada and was an electrician. He was sending money back, paying the bills for us in Florida. And then when he couldn't handle my mom's infidelities and not answering the phone and all the stuff that was going on in Florida anymore, my dad gave my mom an ultimatum that she either got in the station wagon and got a U-Haul and drove up there to Nevada, and they gave it one more go, trying to be, what I mean, married wife, husband and wife, and raise me and my brother, or my dad was going to come down there and get me and my brother and bring them back. So my mom complied, and we moved to Nevada. Um, Lived in Las Vegas for roughly a year before my sister was doing, um, like at 12 years old, 13 years old, my sister was sexually active with full grown adults. So like she already had that behavior manifesting in Florida. She was already like traumatizing herself or whatever. She was abusing herself because she probably saw how my mom acted, so she was behaving much in the same way my mom behaved. She's just running around with men. But my sister was very young when she started doing it. So when we moved to Vegas, my sister started doing things that were very, like they made my dad very uncomfortable. My dad found out about some stuff, and then we ended up moving from Vegas to Pahrump, which was even worse because my sister was just able to do even more stuff because my dad had to drive an hour to work every day and an hour home. So my dad was there even less. So all the stuff that my sister was doing, it just got worse and worse and worse. Um, so I lived in Pahrump from the ages of what, roughly 7 years old, 7 or 8 years old, until I was 20. No, sorry, until I was 18. And then when I was 18, I moved back to Vegas, and I lived there until I was roughly 23 ish. Yeah, when I got kicked out of the electrical union, I moved to Florida. There's a little stuff in between there. I'll say in the next video that I make about my backstory, or but no, I'm not trying to, garner any sympathy with this video. This is not to make people feel bad for me. This is just to kind of um, lay out the fact that I have um, seen hardship in my life, and that I have seen good, bad, and indifferent behavior from people. So I'm very good at gauging human behavior interactions. I've met a lot of people. I've been through counseling and different therapy programs and stuff, and I'm very receptive to knowledge. So I feel like I have a very good perspective on the world and uh, the purpose for why most people will behave in a way when others can't devise a motive for the behavior. I'll be very good at situational thinking and putting myself in someone else's. So it all comes from, you know, having been, a troublemaker and a father at a young age, and a worker, a provider, a construction worker. Every day I get up and I try to be the best son I can. Even now, I live with my dad, and I get up every day and I make his coffee. I help him get ready for work. I see him, when he gets home. I carry his stuff back in from, the truck. I always try to be helpful to him. I still mow his lawn. I take care of the fruit trees. I watch the house when no one's here. There's still roles and responsibilities that I fulfill to my dad, even though I'm an adult, and I don't know when those are going to end. But I don't begrudge doing them, and you know, honor my father as part of my beliefs, and so um, I hope that anyone who watches this video enjoys it. It's a little bit more tame than some of the other stuff that I've posted, and I don't know what direction I'm going to go with posting content, but I'm definitely feeling a little bit more at peace lately. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and if you made it this far, I'd appreciate if you like the video or subscribe to my channel, and that'll let me know that I'm kind of hitting something here, and I'll continue to try and do my best to post more content like this.